So Taurus, your monthly forecast for February on the screen now is your event chart. You can see that your ruler Venus very close to the sparkling effervescent vibe of Mercury as you come into this month, but that array of talent, if you like, astral players in Aquarius is very much about your connection with the wider world. Now, if you're someone who feels unfulfilled as you come into February, I think your determination to raise your profile, to create more recognition, to seize a golden prize is going to be formidable. The combination of Pluto and Mars in itself at the start of this month gives you a lot of desire to be more assertive, more confident, and transform something that you don't feel is working as well as it could. But what that combination between Venus and Mercury is asking you to do all through this month is, yes, have that ambition, yes, have that thrust, but also remember to use a degree of charm, which you often have in abundance. Now, ironically, at the end of the month, because both Venus and Mercury move into your sector of friendship, they are going to be sparkling brightly together as February comes to a close, but then much more in a social context. So at the beginning of this month, that set of influences at the top of your chart, very potent indeed. But I'll just draw your attention to the role of Jupiter. Jupiter is the feel-good planet. It is about luck and good fortune, but it is in retrograde. It's in the part of your horoscope to do with how you can convey your ideas. And it's in a quincunx with Venus and Mercury. And I think that's telling you, really, don't try too hard. Even though you may have enormous conviction as you come into February, it's important to make sure that you're approaching things in a well-balanced way. So don't promise more than what may be realistically deliverable. Now, as we come into the month as well, of course, there is a full moon. You can see the moon just come into the end of its journey through Cancer. Later on the 1st, goes face to face with the sun in Aquarius. Now, the sun in Aquarius is actually the weakest part of its journey. It's detrimented. So we have to kind of be conscious that Leo energy is at times very prideful. It can be very generous, very warm-hearted, but for you, it's going to be very much about how you feel about things. And of course, that's really what the moon gives us a lot of encouragement to do, to be aware of being protective, emotionally and practically secure, staying in touch with our relationships that are important. So because you have such a fantastic array of influences in the most dominant part of your chart, the most visible part of your chart, you're just being asked over the following 2 weeks with that full moon is make sure that whatever moves you make, it always feels right. Be guided by your intuition, even if there is something that's very exciting that you want to go for. Now, on the 4th, Uranus, the planet of change and innovation, which has been in your sign for all but those 4 months last year, full time since March 2019, well, that ends a 5-month retrograde. So if you have found yourself kind of taking 2 steps forwards and 1 step back around something you want to do that's fresh and different, or if there is a change that you're working towards that's stalled a little bit, I think hopefully that will start to move forwards. But I have to tell you, Uranus can be a very provocative influence this month, particularly through week 3 as it connects to the new solar eclipse series in Aquarius on the 17th, but also in the last week of this month as it clashes with Mars, but more of that shortly. On the 6th, Mercury, the communicator, but also the planet of precision, moves into your sector of friendships. It's going to be joined by Venus on the 10th. That combination, lovely on the face of it. It's just that the watery energy of Pisces can distort and erode the clarity that Mercury feeds off. So I think some friendship issues could get a bit murky as the month goes on, particularly as Mercury goes retrograde on the 26th, but I'll share that shortly. But just be aware that the planets shift or start to shift away from that but real focus on career goals, ambitions and targets, and moves much more into a more socially interactive part of your situation. But on the 14th, Saturn moves into the sign of Aries, which is your 12th house. And of course, Neptune moved there on the 26th of January. If you recall, last year they both had not a very brief visit. Neptune was 6 months, Saturn from the end of May to the start of September. They both moved into Aries, your 12th house. You may have felt at times last year that something was coming to a close. Maybe it was an attitude or some ideas or some ways of being that you had been adhered to for some while that you started to release. So it may have been a very positive experience in some ways, but just be aware that over the years to come, with Saturn now in the part of your chart that's very reflective for the next 2.5 years full time, there may be times when your emotional and psychological well-being will need some extra attention. But it's an opportunity to grow because Saturn rewards hard work and industry. Saturn's also extremely karmic. If you're a little bit older, think back to what started to happen for you 29.5 years ago for a couple of years, and that will be an echo of what you will experience in the next 2 years. But as I mentioned, on the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius. Brilliant again if you're wanting to be very ambitious. But if you went for a job in a big corporation or enterprise, which had lots of benefits in terms of perhaps being very visible, responsible, status-wise, but it closed off your ability to be more individual, if you're a natural bohemian, if you like, over the next 6 months of the influence of this eclipse, you could find that something you thought was right for you actually isn't. And that also can be borne out by Saturn and Neptune's new home in your 12th house, which is going to help you to dive deeper in terms of your purpose. But the 18th does see, because the solar eclipse occurs so late at 28 degrees in Aquarius, the 6th of a series of 7 on that degree, which is incredible. But on the 18th, the Sun plays catch up with Mercury and Venus, moving into your sector of friendship. Lovely, but Pisces is very sensitive, but it's also about reflection. So you may want to get together with people from your past that you haven't seen for some while. But on the 20th, we have the exact conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. Last time this happened was in 1987, the Berlin Wall came down. So we can expect some significant world events. What might they be? Well, Aries is the sign of new beginnings, but for you, ironically, it's the sector of endings. How will that play out? Perhaps you're starting the period of something that is going to close down for you. But as I mentioned, it could be a lifestyle choice, where you live, a job that you're in at the moment that you don't really enjoy. You can use the energy of Saturn and Neptune to grow your spiritual and psychological understanding exponentially over the next few years. But the 26th does see Pisces go into a retrograde. Any plan socially you have through to the end of the month is subject to change. Mercury retrogrades get obviously a bad rap, and they can cause issues with travel, ticketing, internet, technology. That's all a given. But what tends to get out there a lot less, it's an opportunity to actually revisit, relearn, recalibrate that part of life. And this is the part of life for you about your long-term future, your higher purpose, the friendships that are really important to you. And it's going to be retrograde through the first 3 weeks of March, so this is going to be a big opportunity for you. But the last week sees Mars in Aquarius, which can be very assertive for you personally, in a square with Uranus. You might experience quite a lot of tension towards the end of this month if you're not getting what you need as quick as you want around your work, or you encounter someone who wants to dominate you in some way. So if you're more of a free spirit and you work in an organisation where a line manager wants to be a bit of a stickler and let you know who's boss or micromanage what you do, that could be enormously frustrating, and it may see you feeling very feisty and perhaps at times agitated to the point of being very outspoken, because Mars in Aquarius is very much about rebelliousness. But to complement that in a more helpful way, your ruler Venus forges a quite beautiful link to Jupiter as this month comes to a close. And in the last few days, you could have a very special conversation. It might have a romantic dimension, I can't guarantee that, but we do have Mercury conjunct Venus, just like we did at the start of the month, if you recall, but this time in Pisces with Mercury retrograde, so there may be an opportunity to reset a relationship that didn't work out the first time round. Maybe you're going to speak to a friend you haven't seen for years. Maybe you're going to research your genealogy. The 12th sign, Pisces, very much about that reflection. Mercury can be about investigation and communication, and Venus, of course, can be about relationships, but also it can be about money. So you may find yourself rethinking a longer term strategy as this month draws to a close. So lots of threads playing out this month, Taurus, but to summarise, if you've got a clear plan of where you want to head in terms of a golden prize, I think you've got a fantastic chance to seize it. Just be aware that your people skills, your affable way of being, your steadfastness and your charm can be just as important as being very determined and assertive. But as the month goes on, I think your need to connect to other people is going to become much stronger. The social dimension calls out to you. And as much as Saturn and Neptune move in, or obviously Saturn catching up with Neptune in Aries, is a new beginning for us all collectively. For you, it's a new beginning for you to think much more deeply about your life purpose. And that will be quite a journey over the next 2 years. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do like, hype or comment the video. If you've yet to subscribe, do so now. And please also join me at patrickarundel.com. We've made even more changes to the website and it's really coming together now. If you've yet to order your personal forecast for the next 12 months, please see the link below and get half price, 50% off.